possibly one of the most important thing is to be able to understand and improve. And how does an organization improve is by getting feedback. Enterprise feedback management is basically getting feedback not only from your customer. You can get feedback from your employees, you can get feedback from your vendors. So based on that, you can track and monitor the performance of the enterprise and improve the enterprise, right? So that's what I'm going to talk about. My session is going to focus on the enabling part, which is how do you enable customer voice, and what are the things that you should look out for when you are planning customer voice. So go straight into the session. So I created an agenda. This is my agenda for this particular topic. I'll go through this in a manner so everybody can understand. My assumption is this is everybody, this is new to you, or you have some experience with customer voice. So I'll go through the planning part of it, then creating, distributing, and reporting, and finally managing a customer voice app. And if we have time, I'll show a little bit about the Power BI integration that you can do with this. Okay, so why customer voice? So as I earlier mentioned, we want to capture, analyze, and act upon. So take an action on customer and employees' feedback. So it's basically a feedback management application. It allows you to create surveys, distribute and send surveys, and get responses and track those responses in conjunction with the tables in Dataverse, and be able to do reports on it, and then take actionable insights using Power BI or any other application that you want to get your data in from the responses. So you'll be able to design and send surveys using the customer or contact data in Dataverse, but you can also import data from any other application. So if you have a database somewhere of your customers or vendors or employees, you can import the data from there. You can automatically send the surveys based on some business rules. So you can create and define business rules of when and how the surveys get sent. For example, if a case gets closed in Dynamics 365, you can have an Power Automate job that is flow that is running, and then that will send the survey out to the customer to track and monitor how was the services that was provided if it is a service case. You'll be able to collect feedback and analyze the results. And you can also link data from multiple surveys. So over a period of time, you have been doing surveys, could be a quarterly, periodic survey, and see what are the trends that you are generating, whether your performance as an enterprise is increasing, and if not, what actionable insights you can take. And all this you can do using Power BI. So give you a background about customer voice. So customer voice is an app in Dynamics 365, but it's also unlike any other app. So it is not a customer service hub or a sales app or a marketing app. It is an app that gives you a very limited ability to customize. So it's completely different than all other apps out there within Dynamics 365 apps environment. So the data flow is, you have to understand, the data is when you use the customer voice app and use Dataverse, the data is stored in both places. So you have in Dataverse, you have the customer's voice project surveys, survey questions, satisfaction metrics. When you create a project, the project data is here as well as stored in the Dataverse. But if you delete data or edit any of this data in Dataverse, it doesn't reflect those changes in customer voice. So we have to be very careful when you are using customer voice, that do not update or try to delete any data in Dataverse. Use customer voice app to manage your data of customer voice. Okay, that's one major difference that I found, and I need to just make sure everybody understands. Also, it's a service, so it's not, its licensing is based on a service. It's based on how many responses you get per month, and based on that, your licenses are charged for you. So it's not and the user license is basically it's free. is the number of responses, and that's how the licensing is. It's also used Dynamics 365 marketing email service to send out the invites, so invitations. And then there is some Azure Cognitive Services analytics that responses are gathered and analyzed using a customer voice analytics engine. So it is also part of customer voice. So when you use or deploy customer voice, this is what you get. Okay. So planning. So there are some general planning topics, survey goals. Initially, have if you're creating a survey, why are you creating a survey? Who is your target audience? What are your KPIs or metrics that you want to cover? Is it lead generation, or is it something to see the performance of your call center employees? So goals of the survey should be identified, and there is a new feature in Power BI for goals. So you can match that Power BI goals with the response that you get from customer voice surveys and be able to work on it. Number two, which is security and regulation. So there is a GDPR compliance issue. So if you are dealing with customers in different parts of the world, where is the data going to be stored and how it is going to be managed? So that has to be understood from a customer voice point of view. If it is Europe, the data is stored in Europe. If it is outside Europe, the data is stored mostly in North America. So you have to be aware of this and make sure that you are in compliance based on your data security and regulations requirements. In addition to this, you have to be careful with the other industry standards like HIPAA and PII. So do not send out surveys that collect or ask for PII information. Or if you are, then you have to follow the compliance guidelines and keep those in place. And then environment planning. So if you're using customer voice, how are you going to do the environment planning? Are you going to use only one environment most of the time? Are you just going to use prod and then have all your surveys created in prod? Or do you have a policy that you need to use multiple environments and make sure that nobody makes any changes directly in prod, and there's always a test at a UAT environment? So that planning has to be done, and based on that, the customer voice has the projects in the customer voice have to be linked to those environments. Users ownership. So this is ownership of the data, and who will own the data. Is it going to be a user owned, or is it going to be a team owned? So if that user leaves the company, what is going to happen to that data? So those kind of questions now you have to target and understand. What is the security role requirement? Are we going to create a new security role, use the out of the box security role? There are maybe at least 8 to 10 new entities that are created, and you have to make sure that whoever needs access to the data has access to those tables for which are created using customer voice app. Volume, what is the licensing requirement? How many surveys and survey responses you are going to get? Mostly to the responses that you are going to get, you need to have an estimate for it. Based on that, you need to have the licenses. What is the limits? Do you want to limit the number of responses? Do you want to make sure that you don't get unlimited number of responses, or there is no you have to plan your survey so they stop and end at a particular point of time. So there are some limitations you can impose. And then how are you going to distribute the survey? So are you going to use Power Automate? Are you going to use email? Or then you can even use a third party. So take a link from this customer link of the survey and then distribute it through a third party product. That is also possible, right? So you have to plan what you're going to do and how the distribution of survey is going to happen. So talking about distribution and surveys, you need to understand some limits. So a single user, if you only make one user own all the surveys, a user can create only 400 surveys. I would recommend to always share the project with multiple users. That way, the ownership of the data is now given to a team. That's how it works in customer voice. Number of questions per survey, 200 is a limit. Number of responses per survey, you get 500,000 responses. So if you're expecting more than that, I would recommend to, as the earlier speaker mentioned, segment your customers or send multiple surveys to different geographies. Those kind of things you can plan about. number of invites per email. So you can only import up to 10,000 contacts in one invitation email. So that, if that is also a limitation, if you have more than 10,000 surveys that you need to send out to contacts, probably you want to send out different emails. And then there's a limit on the Power Automate side. So there is kind of a throttling that it only allows 8 invites to be sent using Power Automate. So if you are going to close more than 8 cases or 8 transactions, that will trigger Power Automate you want per minute. So you want to plan that and make sure that there is it doesn't hinder your sending of surveys invitations. Okay, so those there are some of the limits. I got this information from Microsoft, so obviously this can change anytime. But just keep track of this kind of limits and plan accordingly when you are doing your surveys. Okay, so how to enable customer voice? So we did planning now. You got an idea of what are the things that you planned for, and now you want to go ahead and set up customer voice. So you can customer voice app can be already existing in your environment, or it may not be existing. So you have to check that if you already have this app enabled and existing, so you don't need to worry about it. If not, then you have to set up the customer voice app within the environment that you want to have the customer voice enabled in this, or within the tenant also, right? So you have multiple environments, make sure that it's enabled for that, and you have the appropriate licenses. And then project. So customer voice has a concept of project. So what is a project? So project is a container which contains surveys, satisfaction metrics or KPIs, email templates, Power Automate flows, reports. So all this work that you do in customer voice, you can make it within one project. And then that project is linked to an environment. So every project is linked to an environment. So you can have a project that is linked to a dev environment, a QA environment, a test environment, a staging environment, or the prod environment. So that's how customer voice links. You can have one app for customer voice, and in the app you can have multiple projects, and each project can be linked to multiple different environments. So that's a new thing that you need to understand while using customer voice. And then Microsoft has also provided templates. So when you create a project, you can use multiple templates. There's a periodic customer feedback, order delivery service, visit, support. So all these templates are already pre-built, and you can use any of this template. So let me just quickly, let's take a glance over that. So this is the app, customer voice app, which I have. If you want, I can show you. It's enabled here. So in my environments, I have an environment demo June, and in that I have the customer voice enabled here. So there's an update also available, but you can see in this in the Power Platform Admin Center, you have the appropriate security role. You can see what are the apps that are enabled for your environment. If you have customer service hub or marketing or sales hub, it may already be there, or it may need to be applied and installed and updated. Okay, so that's the setup. And then here are the projects. So you will see I have one project, I have two projects here. And it tells me like a summary of responses, environments it's connected to. So I can have multiple projects. When I create a project, I've been given multiple templates that I can choose to use, or I can create from blank. And then if I select a template, let's say if I select this template here and then go next, it's asking me what is the environment that I need to connect to. So I can now choose in my tenant. If there are multiple environments, I can choose which environment I want this app to connect to. So do not use the default environment. Use one of your non-default environment to connect to, and that's how it will perform well for you. The default environment is not recommended for connecting. Okay, so I already have a demo, so I don't need to create a new project. And then within the project, so if I go to the support project, now you can see that I have all my surveys, my reports within this itself, within the customer voice app. Okay, so you can now look at all this information within the project, and then you can create a survey and look at the different reports from here. All right, go to the next screen here. So select the environment for survey, enable survey users in the environment. So you have to make sure the licenses are there, security roles are given to them. Uh, like licenses are $200 per month for 2,000 responses. So if you are planning to have 1,000,000 responses, you need to calculate those licenses. Share project with users. So this is important because if you have a single person creating those projects, it will become if that person is no longer in your organization for whatever reason, that becomes a problem for you. So you would want to make sure that you share the project with multiple users, and those users are given access to the project. So you would have the project owners, multiple users, and provide them access. So what happens in the background is when you share a project with multiple users, this creates a Dynamics 365 team or a owner team of type Azure AD group with the project owner role. So it is given the project owner security role by the system that way. And then the ownership of the survey data is depending on the now is all the survey data is owned by the project team, not by the individual. So that's the best way to do it. So I'll show you in the demo how you would do that. So if I go back to the project, I can select my project, I can click on share. And then here I already shared it, so I have shared it to two more people, but I can click on share and add any name of the person. I can provide them the role that they need to be shared with. And then this sharing would then enable the creation of what is the team. So now I have this customer voice project owner team, which is created when I shared the project, and this is automatically created, and it's a team which is Office Azure Active Directory team. So that's the way it is. That's how it works. So that way now you are. It's more reliable to have a sharing and team ownership of data than a single person ownership of data. So that's the whole point of sharing with this. All right, so we discussed this. So these are the different tables. So you would have the project satisfaction metrics, localized survey email templates, surveys, survey email templates, survey questions, and the survey email responses. So if you are user-owned project, if I have created a project and not shared with anyone, I am the owner of this project. And then if I leave the company and nobody knows what I created, it becomes a problem, and there is no one who can then further take control of that. So it's better to have the team shared projects in here. Okay, so creating surveys. So we talked about projects and environment and ownership. So now we'll dive into creating of surveys. So you have to design the survey questions. So you want to make sure that you understand what are the options that you have. You have you're like 7 or 8 options here. You can have a question, can be multiple choice question, can be a text question. Now, the text questions are the one where the analytics is done on the sentiment. So if you want any sentiment analytics done, it will be based on your text questions. Rating, date, ranking, Likert rating, and then file upload and net promoter score. And file upload right now, it's only enabled for inside the organization. So if you are restricting your surveys to users who are within your organization, your employees of the enterprise, then file upload is enabled for you. If not, then you don't get that choice as a question. Okay, so let's look at this live. Date. Go to this. I'll just create a new survey. I have it here. And then if I want to add, so these are the question types. So you can look here, I can see I can add any type of this question. It's a choice question or a text question, rating, date, ranking, Likert, file upload, or net promoter score. And this section is where you would create a page. So if you want to have a multi-page survey, you would add sections to it. So when the user is looking at it, they will see multiple pages. So that's where the sections come into the picture. Okay. So next step for you is to define the variables. You get up to 15 variables. You can have first name, last name, locale, contacts, any variables that you want to use. The maximum limit is 15. And then you define the metrics. So that's your KPIs. Each survey can up to have 10 max KPIs, and the KPIs have specific types. So it can be a net promoter score type of KPIs, CSAT, sentiment analysis, or custom score. And then each KPI is linked to a question in the survey. So you would link those KPIs that you create, one of these 4 KPIs, and link those to questions so that they are being tracked based on the responses that you get. And then you would create branching rules. That's where you would say, okay, if the case is closed and the person says the case is not closed, then it's a different branching. If the case is closed and the person is saying, yes, it was closed and my response is this, then there's a different branching. So those kind of question branching rules you can have in the survey here. So I'll just walk into each of this so it's easier for you to understand. So now when you're in the survey and you're in the design step, you would want to look at this customizations and then add the satisfaction metrics. So as I said here, CSAT, net promoter score, and customer sentiment analysis, or you have also custom score. So those kind of metrics you can add here. And then you have branching. So instead of here, let me show you the branching that I have a demo I created. So I have a branching here. You can have multiple branching. It's like a business rule, and then you can trigger. So was it successfully resolved? If true, please show this question. So rule number 1 question, was the case successfully resolved, is equal to yes. That's one of the answers, right? It's a true or false. If true, then show this question and hide the other 2 questions. And if false, then what you need to do is take action. So those kind of things you can create in your survey, and you can have a branching logic within the survey itself. And I think that's pretty cool. I really like the ease of use. That probably is the best thing about surveys, which I like, is how easy it is to set up a survey and just learn. If you don't know much about customer voice, it is probably a day or 2 of effort, and you can really create your own beautiful surveys right from here. And then the surveys also have a header, so you can customize the header, and you can decide if you want to show the header or not. Or you can also have a footer. So you can say, okay, I want a footer at the bottom, and you can define the footer and have a customized message for the footer also. So that's basically the survey messages that you can have. Okay, let's go further. Add languages and translation. So all surveys can be a multilingual survey. So you can have up to max of 23 languages. So if you want to have languages, let me try to show you there. Yeah. So you can add multiple languages. You can select one of the languages that you want, and then you need to have a translation also. So upload the language file, your Excel file of translation. So you need to translate that data here for the language. So up to 23 languages are allowed in this process. So you can add branding. You can have a theme, font, and a background, and then formatting. So you can decide if you want to show hide progress bar, show hide question number, or shuffle the questions on there. So I will walk. Let me finish this. Okay. So I've already been doing demo of this. So you have the branding. You can choose a theme color. You can choose the font and then background for the survey. And you can also have formatting here. So if you don't want the questions to have the same sequence, you can have the shuffling of the questions to avoid the bias in response, which is very cool because there could be a based on the sequencing of your question, there could be some bias in it. So if you want to remove that, You can show hide your question numbers to recipient and show hide the progress. If that's what you want to do, you can choose to do that. Okay, and there's the personalization. Those are the variables that you can add. Okay. So I did the demo of the project and survey along with my presentation. Okay, so the next topic I want to discuss was distribution of the survey. So there are some limitations. We need to understand what are the limitations. So you email max 10,000 recipients by email. Power Automate, if you're sending by Power Automate, 8 invites can be sent per minute. Microsoft doesn't stop you from sending, but that you might have a throttling or some kind of a performance issues if you're sending more than 8 per minute. Uh, that's a Microsoft recommended number. It could change again. You can also embed it in a web page. So if you are on a portal or something, somebody logs in and they have submitted a case and you have completed that case, and then that at the end of this you can say, okay, your case is complete, please click on the link below. So you can have this embedding in a web page itself. You can obviously send a survey link, and QR code also can be sent. And the last three, the embedding, survey link, and QR code, are useful if you're sending it through outside of Dynamics 365. So now if you're sending it through another system, which basically you have been using and you don't want to stop using it, so you can embed the survey in a web page and be sending out through other system or a survey link or QR codes. So send by email, you would be importing up to 10,000 contacts. So I'll show you that you can customize the send from email. You can insert the link for survey or unsubscribe. So those links can be inserted in the email itself. You can have multiple email templates and can choose one of the templates for your survey. Obviously, you can have the languages as we discussed earlier, and then you can even embed the complete survey in the email itself. So it's pretty cool. You can do. And then Power Automate allows you to, based on a trigger in Dataverse, for example, you can have the Power Automate function cause the survey to be sent. You can use the variables for personalization. So I will quickly go over this distribution options. So best is to just show it into the system itself. It's easier. So I have here, I have the surveys already sent here. So look at the distribution settings. So now these are the different options in distribution. So I can choose, okay, only the persons in my organization can respond. So I can limit it to people who are in my organization. So that's an important feature. So if you want only your employees and not anybody else to be part of that survey, you can limit that. Do you want anonymous responses? So this is important because if you are putting it on a website, you don't know who is going to respond if there is no security behind it or login required. Is it one response per person? If you want same person to respond multiple times or no? So those kind of settings are right here. And then you can also set when the responses can be made available, when the survey is made available. So you can choose, I think I saw that in the marketing earlier marketing event also, they were talking about how you can send a marketing message. The same thing with the surveys also. You can decide when the start date and time is and when does it end. So you don't want your surveys to go on forever. You want to stop the surveys after some point of time. And there's a limit to number of responses that you want to have. Obviously, if you're going to pay for each and every response, you want to have the limit to number of responses. So when the survey will be live, you can disable the survey links. And then email distribution channel. So you want to, by default, this is the email address that it will go through. You don't want to send it with and have your customers receive an email from this website or email address. And then that time you'll have to go into, I believe it is the, let me see, I have it somewhere here. Okay, Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So you log into the Microsoft 365 Admin Center and go into customer voice. And that's where you would define what email address you want to have for sending your survey. So that's you write the domain, verify the domain, user email, and those kind of things. So that's where you will say, okay, I want to send my customer voice survey using a particular different my own domain, not Microsoft domain. And then there are some more security settings you should be aware of. You want to make sure whether you want the surveys to capture your first and last name of respondents, and then do you want to restrict the survey's access. So those are the things. The important thing is the email address that you want to send using this functionality here. Okay, and then you can have notifications, send confirmation emails to respondents, or receive an email when a survey is submitted. So normally when I finish a survey, I don't even know if I've completed it or not. You can have a confirmation email sent to the respondent. So that's a good feature if that's what you want to do in there. Okay, and then we were talking about, I think I already showed you about this. Okay, I'm going to pause for some time. If there are any questions I can take, because I don't know, I don't see the questions list here. Are there any questions anyone has?
Hello there, Mahir. So there are a few questions in the chat. There's one question regarding 200 a month for 2,000 responses. Will unused responses roll over to the next month?
Yeah, I don't think so. That would be a optimistic assumption, but no, I don't think so. I don't know. I would talk to Microsoft, but I believe you either use it or lose it every month, and you have to pay for those amounts. But if I cannot say it confirmed, maybe Microsoft, we can talk to Microsoft and find out. Okay,
And that's the only question so far.
okay, good. All right, thanks, Raz. I'll just continue. I just wanted to take a stop and make sure the questions I'm able to answer them. Okay, so we'll go into reports, alerts, and metrics. So obviously, all the effort that you're doing is finally to get this data in, get your feedback, get the responses sent from the surveys that you have sent out, and be able to run your reports. So Microsoft has already provided out-of-the-box reports in customer voice, and those are limited. And I'll show you. They do give you a lot of information, and you can kind of look at that and say, okay, this is what I need. So in addition to this, you can do Power BI reporting. So we will go through the reporting part. So this is where all your reports are. So based on the surveys and the whatever metrics, customer KPIs or satisfaction metrics you have defined, the responses will come in, and as the responses come in, the reports are automatically generated. So you may not see any reports unless you get the responses. So that's important to note, that the reports will get lighted only when you have responses for those surveys, and without which there's no data, so there's no report. And then you can have a report periodically, so you can have a custom date when you want this. You can define the reports by survey, so which survey, what you want to have definition of this, customer satisfaction for a specific survey or all surveys. And then it tells you what was the last refreshed date. Okay, so that's your so I had only created three satisfaction metrics: customer satisfaction, NPS, Net Promoter Score, and sentiment. And remember, the sentiment analysis is based on a text response. If you have any text response, you will get the sentiment analysis report on this. And then individual reports are broken down here, so you can see for each survey what are the details that you have got. So that satisfaction matrix report is for the KPIs, and then these are the surveys. So what was the average rating that you got from your customers, and then longer than expected. So how long did it take? So based on the questions and what was each question, what was the answer, how many of the respondents said this answer versus this, and then some kind of a graphical view of those. And this is probably the best part, that you don't have to do anything. This is out of the box. You send the surveys, as the responses come in, the reports are generated for you, so you don't have to really do much out of that, right? So that's, I think, really cool about this. And in addition to reports, there is the alerts feature. So it's Still waiting on resources. But alert metrics are basically you can define your alerts and they get added to this reports here. Let me go to my presentation here. Okay. All right. So now we are going to the managing customer voice. I have a separate in the end. I'll talk about Power BI reporting, but I think let's finish managing part of the customer voice. All right, so we looked at the survey and project, and what happens is how are you going to manage this, right? So you have multiple environments, or maybe you have just one environment, and you have multiple people who are the survey designers. So they create the survey. They basically are design artists, I would say, because they know how and what questions to ask and how the look and feel should be for the customers and all of those. So when you can create a copy of a survey, and you can also create a copy of a project. Now when you create the copy of a survey, you can move the survey from one project to another within a specific environment. So if you have a dev environment and you are creating surveys in dev environment, and you have multiple projects in the dev environment, you can only move the survey copy from one project to another. But if you have a project, you can copy the project across environments. I mentioned here copy across environments. Surveys cannot be copied across environments. The projects can be copied across environment. And then there is a survey copy and project copies. Survey configurations gets copied. The data does not get copied. So even if you do a survey or a project copy, the satisfaction matrix data will not go into that copy, as well as the response data will not go into the copy. So it's like uh, you are sending the configuration file, but you're not sending the data file. The data file is not going anywhere. Okay, so that's important difference between a survey copy and a project copy. All right, so this is, let's say you have three environments. In your enterprise, you have dev, test, and prod environment, and you have a rule that nobody can, you know, update or create surveys in the production environment. You want everybody to start in creating surveys in the test environment or dev environment, rather. So you have a designer who is creating survey one in dev environment, another designer creating survey two in the dev environment, and they would put or link both the surveys to the dev project. So let's example call it a project called a dev project. What what you want is you want this project to go through a test environment, and then from the test environment, after the testing is successful, it is system testing, integration testing, UAT, whatever test environments you have. You want to then move it to the prod environment. So what you would do is take the project, make a copy of it, and then copy that into a test environment. So that's the first step you would do, and complete your testing. And then once it is successfully tested, if not, then you have to go back to the dev environment and update the surveys, and do a update of the project from the dev project to the test project. And similarly, you would do copy and update. You can copy and update from the test or from the dev, but that's what you would do. You would copy and update the project from one environment to another. So this is how you will be able to manage your customer voice projects and surveys in multiple environments. So that's the process. If you try to do it any other way, I'm not sure if it will work. You may want to test it, make sure it works. But this is one of the ways that you can have survey manage your customer voice projects and surveys. Any questions on this? Okay, I'll go ahead. And finally, the one last thing I want to talk about is, because the Power BI integration, if you are using customer voice and you have large number of responses, you want to use Power BI. So you can do your analysis and analytics run on Power BI, and be able to also take actionable insights. So Power BI gives you all that. You can also set up goals and then track the goals against the survey responses that you get from customer voice. That's why I like Power BI compared to the out-of-the-box reports that you get in customer voice. So to enable the Power BI integration, and it is standard, you connect to your Dataverse environment. Obviously, this will be a prod environment because all the surveys and responses you want to analyze is going to be in the prod environment. You'll be selecting customer voice tables. So when you install customer voice, it installs or enables this tables or entities. The ones that start with MSFP, so it is question, question response, survey, survey invite, survey response, and unsubscribed recipient. So all this information, you have to make sure that you import that or you do a direct query to the Dataverse production environment where your surveys are. You also need to add the activity party and the contact table. So that's important. If you don't add them, then some of the data what you need may not be available. And then obviously, if you have surveys that are being triggered based on the closing of a case or an opportunity or an account or any other entity table, that you need to add those relevant data in the system too, in the Power BI tables, Power BI, PBIX environment. Okay, and then what you do is use those and create your Power BI reports, so reports and dashboards, and that will then enable Power BI with customer voice data. So I have a sample here just to show you. This is one of the uh, environment. These are the tables that are there that MSFP and Microsoft has provided for. Microsoft has installed for customer voice. So all these tables on the side that you see right here are the Power BI customer voice tables that you need to bring into Power BI. So I have the Power BI desktop. I did an import. I did a connect. So I go to get data, and then I click on Dataverse, and then connect to my environment, and then I select the tables that I need to get data into Power BI, and then I can create my own. The relationship may be pre-built, or I can create my own relationship, and then create my visualizations. I don't have data in it, but this is just a sample report for a banking customer voice survey results. So and then you would publish this to your Power BI service. Then it's enabled for everybody in the enterprise, to whoever needs to get access to that reporting analytics in there. Okay, any questions on Power BI integration with customer voice? I think I did publish it somewhere in this. Okay, so this is the same thing I published from the desktop to my Power BI workspace, and then I can see my customer voice analytics right here. And then from here, you can start taking, generating more insights or taking actionable. You can even trigger a Power Automate flow from here itself if you need to, or you can do it from customer voice data in Dataverse. Okay, I think that was it. I want to first thank you everyone for attending this event and being part of the community. And thank you, Raz, and the Dynamics 365 Bootcamp team for having me on this and being able to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Mahir, for that great session. Well-needed session to complement the topics we're covering today. Are there any questions? We've still got 10 minutes for questions and answers. Whilst we wait for questions and answers, I can tell you right now that I'm currently implementing customer voice in line with marketing automation. So the previous session was on marketing automation, and this session is on customer voice. And using both customer voice and marketing automation is often a requirement. And now, if you are a marketing customer, you can leverage customer voice in your marketing automation, in your campaigns. As well, there is a bit regarding licensing, as Mahir rightly mentioned, you can just purchase customer voice as a add-on, but you do get it by default as in enterprise and as an enterprise license. Vengapam is asking, Preetam is asking, customer voice app is not showing in the app list on my environment. How do I make sure it's listed so that I can open? So Office 3, well, it's to do with the license being assigned to you as well, isn't it? So you'd have to have the license assigned to you. When the Dynamics customer engagement license is assigned over to you, often they miss out the component for customer voice. Would you agree, Mihir?
Yeah, correct. And there might be some limitations of security put in where you are not allowed to add apps. So I don't know, depending on the enterprise security requirements.
Yeah, and also you need to access customer voice through Office 365. So you need to access it through the Office 365 apps. If you can't see it through Office 365 apps, it means the license hasn't been assigned to you. So you'd have to get the system admin to assign the customer voice, which is a sub app license of the Dynamics 365 license. Hope that answers the question. It says, but I cannot open by the URL customervoice.microsoft.com. As I mentioned, you do need a license, right? So you may have to double check that the license has been assigned to you, Preetam. It is a common issue, and also you have to check that you do have the correct the correct license being assigned. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, no worries, thanks. So are there any other customer questions on customer insights? Customer voice, sorry, should I say? I mean, Mihir, you did cover it quite well. You were quite comprehensive on the topic. Okay. Right. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, I just want to say thank you once again, Mihir, for your session. Please share your contact details so people can follow you on social and follow you on your blog and any other information that you have to share.
Okay, well done. Thank you, Ras, and thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Yep.
Thank you once again. Okay. So